So it's April of 1992, and I'm at Beth Israel Hospital on the east side of Manhattan. And it's not exactly the best place for a birthday, but this is where my friend is with AIDS, and he's having his birthday. And so a bunch of us have gathered there, and we're giving him gifts, and there's food, there's birthday cake and ice cream. We're tucking him back into bed after giving him gifts and everything, and we're standing around very awkwardly. And suddenly he says, "I have a last request." And we're all stunned because we're trying to keep things light, and he's getting very real with us. He said, "This is what I want. After I die, I want my ashes to be placed in balloons and let fly free over Central Park." This friend was one of the most punkish, hardcore, unsentimental people around. And so we thought, okay, maybe he's delirious or maybe he's just goofing with us. But he wasn't. He suddenly, in the last throes of his life, he decided to become very sentimental. He died in July of that year, and we all gathered together in that October in Central Park. My friend was a very dark person. He had a very dark worldview, so it sort of made sense that the day of his memorial was a dark, cold, rainy day, the kind of rain that feels like razor blades in your skin. His mother had had him cremated, and with my instruction, she had sat at the kitchen table and placed ashes of her son in these balloons with her little teaspoon and brought them down from Syracuse to New York City for this ritual that he had asked for. We had a helium tank that we set up there right outside of Strawberry Fields, the John Lennon Memorial, and we're putting the balloons, we're affixing the balloons to this helium tank and blowing up the balloons and tying them. It's this bizarre little assembly line. And we finally got enough, we were creating these little bouquets of balloons. And so we got over to Strawberry Fields, the memorial, and we were ready to let the balloons fly. And the balloons sunk because there were too many ashes in them. So everything was going wrong. Everything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. And so one of the guys who decided to make himself the boss of everything suddenly said, "Okay, change your plans, everybody. We're going down by the pond." So carrying these two heavy balloons, we went down to the pond and we're looking at each other. Well, what are we going to do now? And he said, "Yeah, just burst the balloons over the pond." And, you know, that's not exactly as poetic as letting these balloons fly up in the air. So we burst the balloons over the pond. And at that point, this wind whipped up, and one of my friends, who was one of the deceased friends, got a bunch of ashes in his eye. So I'm standing there picking these ashes out of his eye while he's saying, "Damn it, I knew he would get me back. I knew he would get me in the end." One of the times we were filling a balloon, it got away and it went, and like, sputtering ashes of our friend all over the place. I mean, it was just as bizarre as you could imagine. So it wasn't exactly as poetic and as beautiful as we wanted, but it went along with his life, which was a very odd and wonderful life. And, and even though we were cursing him throughout that day, we were also laughing because of the absurdity of it all. So after we had let the ashes be disseminated along in this pond, which is probably illegal, we stood in a circle and we had some champagne, and somebody took some sage and burned it to clear the space, to cleanse the space. And while we're standing there, a man comes out of the bushes, and he's dressed in sort of ragged, dirty clothes, and he starts singing. He starts singing this song by the Stylistics called "You Make Me Feel Brand New," which was a 70s soul song. And he was singing it a cappella and in a beautiful falsetto. And so we're looking at him and we're thinking, why is this man singing to us? And he stopped singing and then he put his hand out because he wanted some money. This is how he made his money. And I thought, oh no. And so I went up to him and I said, excuse me, this really isn't the place for this. We're having a funeral for our friend. And he's like, oh, okay, well, why didn't you tell me? It's not like I would have done it if I had known, and he got really sort of resentful. But at that point, my friend's father said to the guy, can I take a photo of you? And so the guy calmed down and he wanted to make amends. So he posed for a photo. And that was just the end of a day of complete absurdity. And as we were leaving, the core group of us, we thought, we came here today to curse our friend at the same time that we were honoring him. But now we realize what a great gift he just gave us of this experience where we all came together and we got something done, even though it was absurd and idiotic and overly sentimental, but we achieved it. And for that reason, all these years later, we remember him because he gave us that gift of that absurd memorial. There were so many people whose lives were cut down in the AIDS epidemic, such vibrant, wonderful people who will not be known by future generations. And I think it's important to remember how our lives were so diminished by this wholesale extermination of these people, a government turning its back on people with AIDS. And so I think it's important to tell the stories of these people as often as possible, because we have a government now that turns its back on people and people with AIDS. And we have to remind people to always be on guard and to be vigilant, because this could happen again and again.